Infertility is always the woman's fault.
It's never a man's fault.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if a woman can't have a child, it's her fault. You know.
But some people say that it's a very feminist kind of.
No, it isn't. Well, the data's there. 50% of infertility is male factor. This is science.
Oh, wow.
So you need to also look after your bones and your muscles, because for women that becomes a significant problem later in life. So really, strength training 2 to 3 times a week is what I recommend women. South Asian women are more likely to have chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and they're more likely to have them at a younger age. You know, breast and cervical cancer screening, South Asian women still come up as being low uptakers of that screening. Also, this concept of modesty sometimes comes in, that, oh, we shouldn't talk about it because it feels inappropriate or it feels a bit indecent, it's not adab, but, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But actually it's really important because, you know, especially now with social media, young people can get information from so many different sources. So it becomes even more important for parents and mums to have those conversations with their daughters.
In this episode, I sat down with Dr. Hina J Shahid, a London-based family physician redefining women's health. With over 15 years' experience, she is leading a new movement in longevity, hormonal balance, and lifestyle medicine. This is Healthcare Redefined, modern, personal, and made for women. This episode of PCHM is proudly brought to you by Yafa Limited, your premier source of authentic Palestinian produce and finest quality dates in the UK.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hina, for your time. All right, would you like to introduce yourself first, please?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you for having me. I'm Hina. I'm a GP or family medicine physician in London. I also have background in public health and medical education. And I chair the Muslim Doctors Association and Allied Health Professionals, CIC, in the UK.
All right, let's start with this, right? Growing up in a Pakistani or Indian household, you know, like there's a silence, like conversation. I don't know about the girls, but the boys as well. The dads never spoken to their boys, sons, how to be, you know, like when you're becoming a dad, you're getting married and stuff. Like as a woman, like Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi woman, was there a silence like in your household as well? Your mom, did she speak to you about growing up, you know, like how to take the life and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think that enough South Asian parents speak to their children about general life issues. I do think that's changing, but certainly in my generation, when I speak to my friends about, you know, the conversations that they had with their mothers when they were growing up, where they, you know, did they know about what periods were, did they know where babies came from, all of these things. I found that a lot of it was left to schools. So, you know, mothers, there was a reluctance to have this conversation, and you know, there is a lot of silence and stigma around it. I think people don't know how to approach the topic.
Why do you think? Why is that? Why was it like this?
I think there's a lot of taboo around it. People don't.
They say in Urdu that is बारे में बात नहीं करते.
Exactly. Oh, you know, that you'll learn, like we learned, you will learn. But actually, you know, it's really important because that creates generational silence, generational shame and stigma. We have so many issues in the South Asian community with women, you know, whether it's women's health, whether it's self-esteem, you know, all of those begin because they didn't have that foundational knowledge and safe space to explore that with a trusted elder, like a mother who would be, you know, well placed for those conversations.
And what do you think, like, what 3 top conversations, like growing up, like back in, like, you know, like this day and age, I feel like things are different. But back then, what 3 top conversations you feel like your mom must have had with you, that conversation? You feel like she must have had this conversation with me when I was growing up.
Yeah, I think the first is that, you know, that your body is not a source of, we call sharam in Urdu, you know, it's not a source of shame, that it's something for you to be proud of. This is the way that you were created. It's something for you to look after. And if something doesn't feel right, then make sure that you, you know, speak to a trusted person about it. The second thing I would say is, you know, speaking about periods, about menopause, fertility, those kind of issues as well. You know, there's also this concept of modesty sometimes comes in, that, oh, we shouldn't talk about it because it feels inappropriate or it feels a bit indecent, it's not adab, but, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But actually it's really important because, you know, especially now with social media, young people can get information from so many different sources. So it becomes even more important for parents and mums to have those conversations with their daughters. And the third thing is around mental health. You know, it's still such an area of stigma and taboo. that if a young person, and we're seeing a lot of mental health problems in young people at the moment, you want to be, as a mum, you want to be the person that your daughter can come to and speak to about things if she's not feeling mentally well. And there's no shame in that, in saying that that you're struggling, and for mothers to provide that safe space, that emotional safety for their daughters.
Do you think, has it been changed over the years? Like in this country, it's a modern country, it's in a developed world we are in. Even though we are South Asians, Pakistan, Indian, Bangladeshi living in this country, things have changed. The moms are having this conversation, the younger moms. And tell me about India as well, like, because you are originally from India, born in this country, but you're Indian ethnicity. How is it going there in India? Are they still like modern moms having this conversation with their daughters?
I think there's probably still a little bit of a lag. I do think that women of my generation who are mums are having those conversations with their daughters. There's a lot more openness. I think when I look at India, surprisingly, I wouldn't say it's so behind or anything like that. I think, especially in India, there's a lot around women's rights and educating women about their rights. Mental health is a big issue as well, in terms of what we see on social media and social movements and community movements. So yes, there is a slight lag, I would say, in India. I would say I'm a half Pakistani as well, and probably there's more of a lag in Pakistan around having those conversations.
In this day and age, still.
In this day and age, although it's changing.
But India is doing better, you feel like, than Pakistan?
I think so. I think India's doing better. I think that's for a number of reasons: economic, stability, for example, the progress that's being made. Education and literacy levels, those things are very closely tied to health as well.
And what do you think here in this country, how South Asian communities, how they're dealing with it, South Asian mums, how they're feeling? Because new challenges, like back then was different, but now 20 years later, like in this day and age, as you said, TikTok and social media and stuff, new challenges, how they dealing with it? Are they dealing with it? Yeah,
so the big challenge area that we're seeing now with young girls is around mental health. I cannot emphasize that enough. And especially with social media. So a lot of mums are having these conversations with other mums, with professionals around, how can they protect their daughters from the influence of social media, in particular around body dysmorphia. This idea that you have to look perfect, and if you don't look perfect, there's something wrong with you, and that's feeding into mental health problems. So the challenges are there. The challenges are different though with social media, and certainly around mental health issues.
What do you think about the biggest, I would say, health issues South Asian women here in this country, in the UK, are facing, we are not talking about?
Well, there are a lot of, I guess that's two questions, isn't it? So firstly, what are the problems, into health problems that South Asian women experience? And if you look at the research, South Asian women are more likely to have chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and they're more likely to have them at a younger age. Then they're less likely to have cancer screening, breast and cervical cancer screening. South Asian women still come up as being low uptakers of that screening. So what that means is that they're more likely to be detected with cancer later on, because they're not presenting for the screening. We also know generally with gynecological problems, maternal health as well. There was a report that came out a couple of years ago looking at the experiences of Muslim women in maternity. And how they don't feel that they are taken seriously, or that their concerns are taken seriously, and they're not listened to. And this is a huge area as well. And like I said, mental health. Mental health problems are on the rise. I would say that they are still not spoken about enough, but that is changing and it's improving, and that's a good thing. We need more services that are culturally appropriate for South Asian women. One of the things that I see
here in this country,
in this country, because when we see women in the national health, in the NHS National Health Service, and I refer women to mental health for mental health counselling, for example, they have the counselling, they'll come back and say that they're still feeling the same because they didn't feel that they had that connection with their therapist, or that the therapist didn't feel heard. So, we need to make sure that the services are appropriate for South Asian women.
And I've been following you on socials and stuff, so you're really big on female South Asian health. So you're trying to promote like awareness, trying to create awareness. So, but I still feel like, do you think like periods, infertility, or like menopause and that kind of stuff, is it still treated like sharam? Like they say, sharam wali baat hai, don't talk about it. Is it still like this in this day and age?
Definitely. It's like I said, it's improving, but it's still an area of taboo, of sharam. People don't want to talk about, about their periods. That's generally in society, but I think it's amplified in the South Asian community because of this notion of honor and sharam and haya, which is so big, and that can sometimes be a barrier to South Asian women actually seeking help or talking about things that might not be right. Infertility is a huge area. I know so many women who've suffered in silence and have felt that they can't speak to anyone in their immediate circle because they will be looked down upon.
In your practice, you have seen yourself.
In my practice, in my social circle as well, obviously it's different because I'm a doctor, so people will tell me things, but, part of that will be that they feel they can't tell other people, because they feel judged rather than, feeling supported. So it's those things I believe are still an issue.
Do you think like it's like most of the people move to this country from Indian subcontinent or South Asian countries, moved to this country, they were like not really educated people? That's how I feel like. I mean, it's still the second or third generation, they're still bearing the, like what they have gone through, their parents and stuff. Is a cultural thing is still going on, or is it education has changed, your Western education, or they're in a developed country? Has it changed? I'm really surprised that it hasn't changed at all. It's still
I think there are so many layers to that question. So when we look at the demographics of people who migrated to the UK from South Asia, in particular from India and in particular from Pakistan and Bangladesh, a significant proportion migrated from villages and those people were actually displaced. So especially if you look at what happened in Mirpur and the dam, those villages were displaced and those people came here. And in Bangladesh, what we know is that there's a significant proportion of Sylhet as well. And, so they faced additional challenges in terms of social deprivation, and parents had to face a lot of barriers to create a comfortable life for their children. Their children are now growing up, and we have seen lots of progress in terms of social mobility. And it's something to be very proud of. That just in a generation or two, we've seen, we see MPs, politicians, we see heads of public services and private companies, who are from a South Asian background. So people have really taken use of the opportunities that they've had in this country. When we look at health literacy, again, there are knowledge gaps. I think those gaps in this generation are smaller. I think in our mother's generation, perhaps, whether it's physical health, gynecological problems, or mental health, a lot of women suffered in silence. I think that silence is slowly breaking in our generation, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And what do you think about top 3 myths about women's reproductive health? What do you think, especially in South Asian women?
So the first is around, infertility is always the woman's fault. And what we know,
it's never a man's fault.
Yeah, exactly. If a woman can't have a child, it's her fault. And
but some people say that it's a very feminist kind of
No,
thing.
it isn't. But the data is there. 50% of infertility is male factor. This is science.
Oh, wow.
So this is not anything to do with feminine. This is just basic science. 50% of infertility is because of male issues. So we can't just call it feminist movement because that's not grounded in the facts and reality. Sure. The second thing I would say is around periods and period pain in particular. That just bear with it. Period pain is normal. If you're having periods, well, yes, a certain amount of pain is normal, but if it's affecting your day-to-day function, that's not normal, and you need to see a healthcare professional. The third one it's not talked about very much at all, but it's the issue of the HPV vaccine. And the reason I know this is because of some of the...
Was it HPV vaccine?
It's the human papillomavirus. is a strong risk factor for cancer, for cervical cancer. And the majority of cervical cancer is due to infection with HPV, which is more common in people who are sexually active. Right. So for over 10 years now, young girls between 12 and 13 or less than 25 are being given the HPV vaccine to protect them against cervical cancer. And what I have seen firsthand is that parents don't want to give their daughters the HPV vaccine because they think that if they give them the vaccine that they will become promiscuous and
But this generally is in Pakistani or Indian South Asian communities like that. Even COVID, they were really like vaccines and.
But this is a separate issue. This is about saying that you're depriving your daughter from having a vaccine that can protect her against cancer because you believe...
Don't you think it's a trust issue there, like with the system?
No, because a specific issue, they fear that if you give the vaccine, their daughter's going to go out and be immodest, that it will lead to immodest behavior. It's a similar thing that people's parents don't want to talk about contraception, for example, because they think that it's going to lead to promiscuous behavior. It's the same reason why parents can get quite uptight about issues around contraception being discussed in school, because they believe that it's going to lead their children to adopt a certain type of lifestyle and behavior, and the evidence doesn't show that.
And let's talk about anxiety and stuff. In South Asian women, what are the 3 you feel like signs they ignore, South Asian women, when it comes to anxiety or depression?
That's a really good question because South Asian women may not present with the typical symptoms of anxiety and depression. And again, that speaks to the importance of being culturally aware of how different conditions and different problems can present in different women. So, we talk about the common symptoms of anxiety and depression, about, if you're feeling constantly tearful,
But don't you think like if I talk about Muslim household, the moment you talk about anxiety or depression, it's about go and read Quran or go and read namaz or salah. It's like that, isn't it? I feel like it's still like that.
It is still like that, yes, it is.
But I think if you have got faith here, if you've got iman, I think that should be enough, isn't it?
Yes.
They feel like this is a very English
English problem.
Kind of English thing.
This is a Western problem. We don't experience that. But
even when it comes to mental health, they say, they have forgotten all their religions. Now, mental health is their new religion, kind of thing. That's what the people say. Like, sorry, you can come back to this.
And that is a really good point. So if we look at the scientific research, the cohort that's most likely to have mental health problems or kind of common mental health problems like anxiety and depression, which is the question that you asked, is actually middle-aged South Asian women. So these are, middle-aged, 10, 20 years ago. So now it's kind of our parents' generation. And that's because, I believe, it's because they just kept it all within themselves and didn't speak to anyone about it. So the common symptoms for anxiety are, if you're constantly feeling stressed about lots of different things or worried about lots of different things, to the point that it's affecting your day-to-day function. And with depression, if you're feeling constantly tearful and you feel that there's nothing in your life that's bringing you joy, then that's a sign that actually this is not just sadness or stress that everyone goes through. We all have periods where we feel up and down. But if it's persistent and constant and affecting your day-to-day function, then you may have a mental health problem and you need to go and see your GP. Now, what I can also say from South Asian women that I treat is that they may not present in this way. They may not come and say to you, I'm feeling constantly sad, or I'm feeling that I've lost a joy for living. I've very rarely heard South Asian women say that. They will come in with, multiple symptoms, pain especially. Pain is like that. I remember one of my colleagues said, pain is the emotional currency that some South Asian women exchange with, because they can't say, or they may not have the language to say, I'm feeling depressed, because we don't have that term in Urdu, for example. We don't have the language.
Is there any term for Urdu for depression?
I don't think so. We don't have the language. Or
Hindi or anything?
Yeah, I don't think so. And this is part of the problem. We don't have the language or the words to frame these issues. So women may not know how they're feeling. So they may be feeling really low and depressed, but it's showing up as physical symptoms. So whether it's pain, whether it's like that chest pain, or whether it's feeling palpitations or is heart racing all the time or whatever it may be, or headache is a big one that I see, dizziness is another one that I see a lot, you know, and actually when you dive into it, then it's because they are feeling feeling depressed or feeling anxious for whatever reason, but no one's actually asked them about that, or spoken to them in a way that they can actually connect with their bodies and connect with their emotions. So that's a big thing. I obviously have to caveat that and say that we can't just stereotype whole communities as well. This idea that you have Begamitis or BBitis, that South Asian women. I don't know whether you've heard of these terms, but people speak about it in the medical profession. And I remember when I was working in hospital medicine, even in general practice, they'll be like, oh yeah, all over, but this woman's typical South Asian woman has all over body pain. Oh, this is Begamitis, the BBitis, all over pain.
Begamitis and BBitis.
Yes, exactly. And it's
Begums and the BBs.
Yeah, and it's stereotyping. So that's really harmful. I think we have to understand, why is it that these women are experiencing these symptoms? What is it that we're missing here? And also, it's important to not just attribute these issues to purely psychological problem, because the research shows that women are less likely to be taken seriously when they present with chest pain, and for that to be linked to heart attacks. And so a lot of heart attacks can get missed in women.
Sure. What age group are we talking about? Like, for example, the younger women deal with the, mental health better than the older women?
Yes.
How does it work?
Yes.
In your practice, in your opinion, what you have seen?
So this idea of the Begamitis, the BBitis, that is in our mother's generation.
Right.
Like I said, they didn't have the words or the language to express how they were feeling, or they felt that they couldn't express how they were feeling because it's a job of a woman to just bear it all and and just put up with it, and it's a sign of weak faith if you can't bear it. So that we're talking about the old generation. Our generation, I think, are a lot better with coming forward and wanting to have therapy, for example. There's less stigma about it, which is a positive thing.
All right, let's talk about food now. The mental health is let's move on. Let's talk about food. Food, as you know, is our love, PR language. Like if your mom is not happy with you, or something happens, and she will want to come back to you, and she's going to offer you food rather than saying sorry or anything. That's how we are as South Asians. So what do you think is all them parathas and the mithais and the biryanis? Is it, especially in our South Asian culture, especially for women, are they how to deal with this kind of because if you don't eat that, because everyone around you is having it, and if you don't want to do it, they single you out. Kabhi kabar chata, let's have it now and forget it. Just have it for now. Don't worry about it. Let's have it. Nothing happens. What do you think? Is it food is the biggest issue? Has it got any connection with the mental health as well? Food and mental health?
Lots of really good questions in there, actually. So if we look at food is such in the South Asian culture, it's such a big part of our social life. It's like you call up your friend, or you want to get together. It will
because
always
we can't have alcohol, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
it will be around food, right? And typically around healthy food. So it's really interesting. I did this series of outreach workshops with Afghani women, and it was about healthy eating, and we were talking about healthy cooking. Like I was saying before, good health begins in the kitchen, and that's not just for women, that's for men as well. It's everyone's responsibility to look after their health. And so we were talking about what are the healthy ways of cooking food rather than deep frying. Looking at baking or grilling or steaming. And what they said to me, they said, look, Dr. Hina, if there isn't a layer of oil on the top of the food, people are not going to eat it. It looks like we've been really stingy. And there's this concept in Urdu. They say, if you put oil and you see the oil floating, that usse khane mein raunak aa jati hai, So you have to challenge that.
It's true.
You have to challenge that.
Otherwise, it looks really bland, what are you eating?
Exactly. And then you have people who have diabetes, and they'll have the jalebi in this, and then I'll say, but don't you have diabetes? Oh, it's fine. I'll just take my insulin injection. Oh, it's fine. I'll just have my tablet. Same with cholesterol. Oh, I'm just going to have my tablet. That completely defeats the purpose. Again, what I'm seeing now is a change. I'm seeing people who are, a couple of changes actually. So the first is that, people are taking what they eat much more seriously. And so when they have a dawat or a get together, and they are, they're on a specific diet, or they don't want to have sugar or fried food, they will just say, I can't eat that. I'm not, I'm sorry, I'm just watching what I eat. And it's becoming more acceptable. Before, it used to be this, people would get offended.
Yes, they do.
They would get offended. What do you mean? Oh, you have to just have some more, have some more. But I think people are now becoming more aware, and they're saying, okay, this is actually a good thing. I shouldn't take offense if that person doesn't want to eat that. They're prioritizing their health. That's a good thing. So I think that's everyone needs to, have that knowledge. The second is when we're looking at, social activities. Again, people are becoming more creative. Instead of let's go to a restaurant or just come over, why don't we go out for a walk? Why don't we go cycling? Why don't we do some sport? Or, why don't we go out in nature? Something like that. So it's shifting away from food, and that's really important for our social activities to not just focus on food, because food is medicine, but food is also poison.
That's true. And what do you think about how does the body image pressure show up? Like health, slim versus healthy. How does it work? Very
topical issue, as you know, because of all these injections that are being rolled out. Everyone wants to take these injections to reduce their weight. And we have to understand that everyone's body is made differently. And everyone has health risks that they need to think about. So for some people who are on this, who are naturally on the slim side, they may, so for women in particular, they need to be careful, because if they don't have enough body fat, then it might cause problems with fertility. It may also cause problems with brittle bones and falling and fractures. Osteoporosis is a big problem as well. Sarcopenia, which is muscle strength. Actually, the research shows that your muscle strength is one of the strongest predictors of longevity. So if you are slim and you don't have muscle mass, then you're not going to age healthily. On the other hand, you have people who are, more and more people are going in the overweight, obese range. Largely that is driven by lifestyle. The evidence is overwhelmingly out there. It's, the genetic causes of obesity and overweight are small. Your weight is what we call polygenic. It's influenced by your genes, interacting with your environment. Right. People tend to focus so much on genes. Oh, my mum was like this, grandma. Okay, fine. You may have that element in your genes, but that means you just have to work harder, and you have to watch what you eat. You have to exercise. And people now, because of these injections, don't want to do the hard work. Yeah. It's let's just take an injection. Let's just look slim. I mean, I've come across patients who are actually in the normal body weight, and they're taking these injections to become, underweight now we have. So people are... Is
it happening in this country and around the world?
It is happening. I mean, I can speak about this country.
South Asian countries? In this country?
In this country. I don't know about what I don't know what the access to those injections is like in South Asian countries, but certainly in the UK, it's become a huge market. And it is being abused. And it's unhealthy to depend on injections to maintain a healthy body weight.
Sure. And okay, let's talk about top 3 foods you suggest and you think are a no for a girl growing up in Pakistan, India, or in this country, South Asian girls growing up in their, let's say, early 20s and stuff. It's a no for them. Top 3 foods.
Top 3. So I would say, firstly, is to cut out fried foods. Cut out ultra.
That's not that easy. So everything fried, isn't it?
But no, it isn't. But I would challenge that, because it is, a lot of it is about self-control, and you have to prioritize your health. It doesn't matter if
But when you're young, you don't understand.
I was young, and so.
I mean, generally,
but that's what I'm saying. So I think we can let people off the hook, but you can. 20 is young, yes, but you're an adult, and so if you want to prioritize your health, and we are seeing a lot of 20-year-olds now who are really prioritizing their health, going to the gym, eating healthy, all of that stuff.
First one was fried food.
Fried food out.
Yeah. Second one.
But I'm going to caveat this at the end. So fried food, ultra-processed food. Ultra-processed food is just poison. So all the supermarket stuff that you can get, like
what is ultra-processed
snacks,
food?
Crisps, chocolates, supermarket bread, ready meals, all of these things have ultra-processed foods. They need to go. Thirdly, sugar. Sugar is a driver for so many chronic health conditions. That needs to be eliminated where possible. as well. And then I would say there are two other areas, food groups that people need to cut down on. So especially in Pakistan and Muslim communities, there is so much consumption of meat.
Red meat.
Red meat in particular, and that's linked with bowel
But
cancer.
they say red meat is according to new research,
Yeah, new
full
research.
of nutrients and full of, like whatever your body needs. And if you don't eat meat, your brain stays smaller. I was watching somebody on internet, they were saying, it was a doctor, a very reputable doctor from America. If you don't eat red meat, your brain stays smaller. If you eat red meat, so what do you think about all this stuff going on these days?
So this is the thing about social media. You have to, people can present themselves as experts or handpick, cherry pick some research and say, look, this is what the research shows. We have a body of established evidence that shows that eating too much red meat is linked with bowel cancer. I have had colorectal surgeons who have given talks on this and spoken about the data that they are seeing in South Asian in the South Asian community, which is linked with consumption of red meat. It's bowel cancer happening younger in people in their 30s. I know patients myself who have had bowel cancer in their 30s, and that is linked with red meat, and in particular processed red meat. That ultra processed food that I was talking about. And red meat also is full of cholesterol, fat. So if you are going to eat red meat once a week, is fine. So I'm not saying completely cut it out. You can.
What about Indian communities? They don't eat red meat.
This is the other thing I was going to come on to. The Indian community, and also if you look at these blue zones around the world, some of these blue zones, they have very low consumption of red meat, and also now there's a whole movement of having a plant-forward diet. The majority of your diet is based on plants. And plants doesn't just mean vegetables. It means whole grain as well, like, quinoa, millet, those kind of things, all come into grains. Oats, they come into grains as well. So it's not just salads, which is what people think. So having more plants and less red meat. And then salt, cutting out salt as well.
But they say that you need your electrolytes and...
Yeah, so actually the ideal amount of salt they should have is 3 grams. Most people do have more than double that. Actually, I would say people have more than quadruple that. So actually the guidelines say, because it's so unrealistic, aim for less than 6 grams of salt a day. So... yes, you do need salt. It is part of your transport mechanism in a lot of your cells. So we need that. Similar with healthy fats. We need healthy fats because the cell membrane.
Healthy fats, for example, give me 3 examples of healthy fats.
So a handful of nuts, olive oil, foods like fatty fish, salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines, eggs. With that, so. Eggs is an interesting one because the egg white is good, is high protein. The yolk you have to eat in moderation because that can push up your cholesterol.
But they say it's a healthy cholesterol.
Well, so there are different types of fats, so saturated and unsaturated fats. And egg yolk has a lot of saturated fats, which is unhealthy. So that's why, when you say they say and whatever, that's why it's always good to go to a trusted health professional. However, having said all of that, no one is going to be following these things, right? No one's going to completely cut out fried food or, especially when it comes to Eid or whatever. And, people are not going to completely cut out ultra processed foods because it's so widely available.
That's the food available everywhere.
Exactly. And people are not completely going to cut out sugar. So what I say is an occasional treat is okay. And actually, there's no hard and fast rule for this, but I use this 80-20 principle. If 80% of the time you're eating healthy and you're doing the right things, it's fine. You can treat yourself at 20% of the time. So I think that's a realistic balance.
And they say, it's expensive. Finding like ultra processed food is there, and cost of living crisis, and people are struggling with money and stuff. Going for healthy food is difficult, it's expensive. What's your take on that?
So buying a ready meal may be expensive, but if you cook from scratch and you can get like a few meals from a couple of ingredients or a few ingredients, then actually that's more economic. So it's not...
How many ingredients? Maximum 3 ingredients?
4.
4?
For what?
Well,
Depends what you're making.
Okay.
Depends what you're making, but you don't need to make fancy food all the time. It's having a simple diet actually, and again that's what the research shows. Having a simple diet is what makes all the difference. Now, new research is saying you need to have about 30 different types of plants every week. That can be expensive, but if you are buying in season foods, that's going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
Also, if you can also freeze. You can buy fruit and vegetables, and you can I do this. I freeze it and then just use it when I need it. So actually, that's economic. And then try and grow. So I'm trying to do this myself actually. So grow your own fruit and vegetables where you can. Especially vegetable herbs, you can grow yourself. So there are ways of, if you prioritize your health, if you say this is something that is really important to me, then you will find a way, and it doesn't have to be expensive.
You need to make an effort as well.
You need to make an effort, yeah. So it doesn't have to be expensive.
Top 3 small lifestyle changes you think a woman can make today?
So the first one I would say is nutrition. So have a healthy diet, plant forward, as I mentioned, have a plant forward diet. Number 2 is move more. So aiming for at least 20 to 30 minutes of moderate exercise a day, and combining that with strength training. This is something that women really need to be focusing on, is strength training. Often when women want to go to the gym, they'll or they think about exercise, it's doing treadmill or cardiovascular. Yes, that's good for your heart, but you need to also look after your bones and your muscles, because for women that becomes a significant problem later in life. So strength training 2 to 3 times a week is what I recommend women. And the third, and this has one of the strongest links with living well and aging healthy, is social connections. Having positive social connections, surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who bring you positive energy in your life, is really, really important.
And do you think, let's talk about culture and religious side of things, yeah? Factors. Are women pressured to put family health in above than their own health, like in a desi household?
Absolutely. It's this idea that
it's still in this day and age.
Yes, still in this day and age. It's improving, but it's still there. This idea that women are caretakers. They are there to look after everyone else and put everyone else's needs first, and then their health suffers. And I see this in my clinic. We see this in the research. Some very interesting research that has that shows that actually women who are married can have poorer health outcomes compared to women who are not married, or men who are married, because and it's not just about life. Remember, it's not just about lifespan, because women tend to live longer than men. This has been what the research has showed for many, many decades. Right. But it's about health span. It's the quality of their health as well. So it's because there's this idea that a woman needs to sacrifice everything, and if she doesn't, then she's not fulfilling her role as a woman in the household and the family.
Right. And what do you think, in terms of faith and modesty, because of that, women, the way they approach the sexual health, how do you see that balance? Can be really difficult. It can be difficult. Your sexual health, and you are Muslim, or you're a South Asian person. So how do you see that?
Yeah, I see that in my clinic all the time. Women are so embarrassed to talk about it. Even if they want to talk about contraception, for example, there's so much embarrassment because they, firstly, they don't know if it's the right thing. This religious idea that children are from God, and it doesn't matter how many children you have, doesn't matter what your life circumstances are. They're from God, so just keep having them. But religion also teaches us to make responsible choices, and it's balancing that.
What kind of background these women are from, in your practice, what you have seen?
They're very diverse from from actually different parts of so a lot of Muslim women, but not just Asian women. I see women from lots of different ethnic backgrounds who are Muslim. So whether that's African and Middle Eastern, I have quite a large mix of women that see me, but there is still a lot of embarrassment about talking about these issues.
And do you think it's changing, or is it still the same? Is it still going to carry on? How do you feel like?
It's interesting because we have in our generation, we have people who are second and third generation in this country, but then you have the more recently arrived migrants as well. And so there are still some differences, because those people might still hold on to those cultural and social values of shame and you know, and ideas around modesty, that it's not proper to talk about these things. Versus if you look at second and third generation women here, they might feel more open, you know, when it comes to talking about these things.
Right. Just give me 1 second, you know. Let me take it. Hello? Sorry about that, guys. Walaikum salam. Just give me 1 second. No. What you can do, if you just buzz that door, there's a metal door. I'm coming downstairs. Give me 1 second. I'll get you parked here.
Have you been doing this all day?
Yeah, pretty much. It's all right. We've been different subject now, so it's okay. You just have to be careful when he says stuff like I saw on TikTok.
Oh yeah, but you know when he was talking, I had this man that came in to see me the other day, and I can't remember which ethnicity he was from, and he's on this carnivore diet. Yeah. This is the new trend now. Yeah. A lot of men are doing this. They're going on the carnivore diet, only eating meat, red meat as well. They're like, it's good for us, and I'm like, but the science for like decades has shown the harms of having just this diet. Like you're not getting any fruit and vegetables that's rich in, you know, cancer protecting ingredients. You know, you're not having any of that. You're just having meat. He was like, yeah, this is the, you know, I've been told that this is the diet for me to improve my heart health. And I was like, oh my God, people are having all sorts of ideas.
It's lack of information, isn't it?
It's information from the wrong places. Because nowadays everyone's an influencer. Everyone's a health influencer on social media, regardless of whatever background they've had. You know, they've come from. They've not studied any science.
Misinformation.
My sister-in-law's house meat every day.
Oh, but this is the thing. Why?
We have it once a month, not even.
So, you know, I said to Marge this, I was like, is this just South Asian or is this Muslim? He said, it's just South Asian. Because, you know, what I say when people talk about, you know, meat consumption in the Muslim community, like if you look at the Prophet _, he barely ate meat. You know, it was a rare treat. His diet was really, really simple. It was like sometimes a date, you know, a bit of barley, a little bit of bread. That was it. And whatever they could find, and, you know, naturally. Now it's like you have to have 3 courses, and you know you have to have multiple dishes, and it's completely gone away.
So, do you know where the caretaker is?
And just, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it.
And it's like a matter of pride. Oh, I'm so stuffed, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of culture that's come into play, and we're seeing a lot of problems in the South Asian community: diabetes, heart disease, cancer.
Is it all culturally based? A lot of the problems are because of the culture feeding through to the way that they act.
Well, that would be unfair to say that it's all culture, because we know that genes do play a role. But especially like in the South Asian community, for example, you know, we've come from countries where we had a certain type of diet, and now that diet has evolved here, and our body doesn't really know how to handle it properly. And
when you say it's evolved, is it a change from, I'm guessing, vegetables
yeah,
and curries to meat curries?
yes, that, and also the way that, you know, I mean, like roti is a part of our staple diet, right? So people will say, okay, now there's this new move, like don't have roti because it's causing diabetes or heart disease. And the problem is not the roti, the problem is the type of flour and the way that flour is processed now. It's very different to how it was. Like I remember going back to, you know, my ancestral village in India, and you would see like people actually, you know, milling it with like manually. Yeah. Now it goes to factories, all refined, and it's the refined carbohydrates that's causing the problem. Right. So yes, to cut down on your roti. If you're going to have roti, just have whole wheat. But it's not the roti itself; it's the flour. And the way that the carbs are processed. And then also, you know, people would still eat, you could still eat curry and whatever, you know, like our grandparents, but they had a very active lifestyle. Now we eat and we sit, and so you don't burn anything off, you know, like going to work, going to school, whatever, people would walk. And now we just sit, it was a sedentary lifestyle. So it's basically lifestyle. So yes, genes play a part, but that just means that we have to work harder, and that's what I say to people: you have to work harder.
I think so. For us, it's okay because you might go gym or play sports. Fine.
Yes.
But getting our parents or grandparents to do that,
it's hard.
It's impossible. Plus, the cultural thing is that the waste of fat.
Yes.
doing those things. So
Yeah, yeah, I know. At that generation, it's hard because they're set in their ways, and that's why I'm seeing positive change in our generation.
that's what this is needed for.
Well, there was no caretaker, so I had to just couldn't open the door, the gate. Now she parked outside, so they're praying. So
Okay.
what time is it now?
Is anyone in the office?
No, no one is there.
4:40.
So, So where we are, the top three hurdles you feel like is stopping South Asian women prioritizing themselves rather than, they're prioritizing their family, but not themselves. So top three, you feel like the hurdles are there.
So the first is, I would say, this idea, like I mentioned, women having a caretaker role, and that they need to, women eat last, they rest last, they need to look after everyone else, and then they look after themselves. And I think I mentioned this in the beginning, when we get on a plane.
It used to happen back in the day. Nowadays, I don't feel like it's like things have changed, isn't it?
You say it in a way that makes it sound like a negative change. That women are.
No, it's not a negative change.
Prioritizing themselves.
Don't get me wrong. It's not a negative change. No, I feel like it was a long time ago, but nowadays things are changed, like different.
It may be less obvious, but it's still subtly there. People also ask, people also have that expectation. They may not say it as openly, but they still think it. And this is, and I know that this to be true actually, because I speak to my friends, and it's like, they need to be a good housewife, they need to be a good daughter-in-law, and they need to be a good mum. And there's
nothing wrong in
mum
doing
guilt.
all that stuff.
No, nothing wrong. But the problem, and that leads me on to the second point, is women are now facing this double burden, double shift. Especially professional women. Education is every human being's right. As a Muslim, I'm always reminded that the first word to be revealed in the Quran was read. It's an imperative for everyone to be educated.
Yeah.
So now we're having a situation, women are educated, they're working, they're contributing to society, which, like, if we look at the Prophet ﷺ's wives, they all did that,
Yeah.
But they don't have the support around them. And so they're going to work in the day, and they're coming home and they're having to do all the evenings, all the work around the house. It's a double shift. It's, out of the home in the day and in the home. So, I feel there needs to be more wraparound care. So whether that's child support, their husband stepping up, the wider family stepping in and saying, and taking on some of the load rather than burdening women with that, I think is another important thing.
All right, let's talk about because mashallah, you're a very successful person. You have done really well. And I'm sure you must have made a lot of money as well, mashallah. So I just want to ask your personal relationship with money. Like growing up, what kind of money lessons your parents gave you? Like Indian parents, like Indian Pakistani parents, they are very hardworking people, and they know how to make money as well. So what kind of lessons did they give to you?
Yeah, I think so. The first thing is this, there's this gender stereotype around women don't need to know about finances. Their husbands will take care of it. Their dad will take care of it, and it's really important for girls to have those lessons, those money lessons taught to them. And I guess I was really fortunate because, my dad worked in finance. And so, he opened a bank account for me and my sister when we were teenagers, actually. I can't remember this before or after 16 or at 16. So, I had my first bank card as a teenager, and it was about having those talks around being responsible with money. So I grew up actually in the Middle East, in the Gulf, and as you know, in the Gulf, it's a very materialistic life.
Yeah.
More so now, but it was back then as well. When I went to school, I had, we didn't have school uniform, and there were some very, very wealthy children in my school, and they would come into school wearing designer clothes, and they would have drivers coming in and taking them to bringing them to school, in a very flashy lifestyle. And that is how I was, that was the environment I was surrounded in. And I remember my parents saying, look, we're not like them, we're just normal people. And this a really important life lesson of living within your means, I learned very, very early on. So
how did they help you with your relationship with money today? How did it help with that life lesson?
Yeah, because I don't believe in frivolous spending. I don't I don't think I'm a materialistic person. I'm not interested in materialistic things. You know, for me, if I have money, I will invest it in education, which I've done like for all the different degrees and courses and diplomas that I've done. I'll invest it into experiences like travel, which I think is a really good way of educating and learning about the world, and invest it, you know, in ethical spaces. So I don't really have a flashy car or believe in living in like a grand house or anything like that. That doesn't appeal to me. You know, I grew up surrounded by that kind of lifestyle, and it just didn't appeal to me. So what I'm seeing now, and I think it's more important, is that people have become obsessed with making money. It's like, you know,
this is a trend these days.
It's very, you know, it's all about making.
It's all about making quick money.
Quick money. It's you know, it's all about having a flashy lifestyle. It's all about projecting that on social media, and you know, and I think it's really damaging to young people because they believe that in order to be happy, you have to have money, and that's, you know, and that's a really, really dangerous message to be sending out.
But how can you tell this to someone sitting, a young person sitting in this country, opportunities, things are different in the UK. But if you're sitting in Indian subcontinent where the opportunities, you know, like rich people, always the elite class, they always, you know, like they control things. What top two tips you're gonna give it to someone sitting in Indian subcontinent, young person, and big dreams? What you going to tell them how to go about it when they are seeing all this on social media? People are flashing amazing cars and money and all that stuff.
I think it comes down to the values that you give, that you pass on to the younger generation. You know, what is it that you're trying? What does it mean to be a good human being? You know, what is it that's important to you and to the world? You know, having a flashy car or a big house, how is that actually going to make you happy? You know, having those conversations, open conversations, like I remember, like the way that I remember my parents had with me, and kind of, you know, reminding me that, okay, we're surrounded by all of these people, but we're not like them, and I think it's difficult now because
very difficult. You can't.
Very difficult. Like parents, like my friends who are parents will say, "Oh, but you know, this so and so child has this, so I need to buy this for my child." No, you don't have to buy it for your child, and it's for you to teach that to your child that money doesn't buy happiness.
And how was that moment? Define me that moment when you felt like financial independence. Now I'm making my own money and I'm doing really well. How was that moment?
Yeah, so I remember before I started university, and up until that point, like my parents had supported everything. My dad had like paid for, you know, I was mostly privately educated, so my dad had paid for everything. And before I started university, he said, "Look, you know, we've done all of this, everything for you, and now you're 18, and now you're going to university, and now, you know, it's time for you to be responsible and independent." So, you know, so back then, the tuition fee was barely anything anyway. So, you know, my dad said, "I'll pay your tuition fee, but everything else, all your living expenses, that's for you to fund." So whether it was taking out a student loan, having a job, and I at medical school, I worked part-time in retail. And medical school is demanding. You're going in 5 days. It's 9 to 5. You don't really have breaks, but you know, to pay my rent, to go traveling, to buy things, that was all on me. So I remember getting my first paycheck at 19. Wow. You know, when I was still studying.
And how did you feel?
And it was really empowering. I was like, wow, now I can, you know, I don't have to depend on somebody else. I mean, obviously, I still had a lot of support from my parents, but you know, it felt really empowering.
And what like going back, what top 3 things you're going to tell yourself, like growing up, kind of like tips you're going to give it to yourself, that if I get a chance to grow up again, like get back into my 20s or teenage, what top 3 things you're going to tell yourself? I
don't know about top 3, but there's one thing that I if I could go back and do something differently, it would be to invest. So I would say to people to invest early, because
but back then there was not much information.
Correct, there wasn't, and also now we're seeing a lot more culturally compliant investment products as well. That, you know, back then it wasn't available. So maybe it's a bit harsh, but if I was to give advice to young people now in their 20s, it would be to to invest early.
Let's talk about you traveling. You travel a lot, I know, and you travel to India as well a lot. Let's talk about India right for now. I think you travel like once a year to India. So how do you think India has changed over the years, going back like 20 years ago now, especially women in India?
India has changed. It's beyond recognition. If I compare what it was like 20 years ago to now, it's just incredible. And I'll give an example of, so my ancestral home is in the countryside. And when we were young, we had to, we'd land at Delhi and then we'd have to travel north to our ancestral village. And back then, it would take like 5-6 hours, jungle roads. Sometimes it'd be too dangerous, so we'd have to like stay in Delhi and then travel during the day. Now it's 2 hours on a highway. It's the infrastructure is incredible. The education as well, that we're seeing with young people and internet access in villages. I mean, it's just changed beyond recognition.
And what about health conversations, or women having that kind of conversation back then and now? Has that changed?
I think social, we have to give credit to social media where it's due. I think social media in general has facilitated those conversations. So people are more open talking about those things. So, even in Pakistani dramas and Indian dramas, they will have some issue, social issue, and sometimes it's a health issue, and how does a family navigate a health challenge or those kind of things. We see that reflected in our screens.
Do you think that because of social media, like Indian women are more empowered, like in this day and age? Is that because of social media?
Social media is part of it, but also education and literacy. I mean, it's in there's. If you go to Kerala, for example, it's 100% literacy.
It's South India, isn't it?
100% literacy rate, which is incredible. But so social media has played a part. Education has played a part. And general social movements, especially there's a very strong civil society in India with a lot of spaces for, female empowerment. And I think that certainly also played a role.
All right, quick fun thing, like chai tastes better here or in India?
Of course in India.
Why? It's amazing chai places around everywhere.
Yeah, but it's not the same authentic, that it's different. It is different. It's tastier. It's more bodied. It's a different experience, and especially I know we spoke about not eating fried food, but this is an exception, especially with this paneer pakore and the masala chai is my favorite.
Isn't it? Right.
As a treat.
Let's do some practical takeaways. Like what we are getting out of this conversation is like top 3 health checks you think every woman should do annually.
So that really depends on a woman's age. So if you're in your 20s, you don't really need to have routine health checks. Unless you have any symptoms, you're feeling unwell, or if you have heavy periods and you're feeling tired, then it would be good to get your blood count checked, because anemia is quite a significant problem. In your 30s, if you have a family history of heart problems or diabetes in particular, it would be good to check for cholesterol and sugar. And then when you're getting into your 40s, you might have some hormonal symptoms that might start appearing. So menopause can actually start 10 years before. You actually have your final period, which is a definition of menopause. And so, women might want to get their hormones checked at that point. And at all stages, it's really important for women to be doing breast self-examination as well and attending their screening. So in the 20s, 25 is when cervical screening starts. So it's really important to attend that. And then, 3 years annually until 50, and then every 5 years after that. And then attending your mammogram, whether when you're called. In the majority of places it's 50, but in some places they've reduced the age down to 47. And certainly if there's any family history, then you would be eligible. You could be eligible sooner as well. So those kind of checks is what I would recommend. But I'm against just checking things for the sake of checking, because that can create a lot of health anxiety as well.
Okay, before we finish, one last message you have for South Asian women, especially to take charge of their health early. What's the message you have?
Health is your biggest asset. So look after it, and make sure you know how to grow it.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.